Verse 1 of Numbers 35 says, And Yehovah spoke to Moshe in the desert plains of Moab by the Ardain of Jericho, saying, Command the children of Israel that they shall give the Levites cities to dwell in from the inheritance of their possession. Also give the Levites open land around the cities. And they shall have cities to dwell in their open land for their cattle and for the herds and for all their livestock. And the open land of the cities which you give the Levites are from the wall of the city outward 2,000 cubits all around. So the Levites were told, when you go into the land, you're not going to have an inheritance, okay, because I am your inheritance. That's what they were told. Then they're given 48 cities. Out of all the cities that the children of Israel have, they're given 48 of them for the Levites. And 6 of those, as we'll see, are for a very special purpose. You shall measure outside the city on the east side 2,000 cubits, and on the south side 2,000 cubits, and on the west side 2,000 cubits, and on the north side 2,000 cubits. And the city is in the middle. This is to them open land for the cities. And I've changed this. It says that the open lands of the cities which you give to the Levites are 2,000 cubits all around. Okay, because in the Septuagint, it says 2,000 cubits, which fits in with this. It says it will be 2,000 cubits all around, 2,000 to the north, south, east, and west. That makes sense. In the Masoretic text, it says 1,000 cubits, and then it says, okay, actually it will be 2,000. Doesn't make any sense. This is correct. Verse 6 says, And the cities which you give to the Levites are the 6 cities of refuge which you give to him who has killed someone to flee to, and to these you add 42 cities. Okay, so these cities of refuge, he just says, these are the cities of refuge. It's because these cities have actually been mentioned before, all the way back in Exodus. We'll look at that. All the cities which you give to the Levites are 48, these with their open land. And the cities which you give are from the possession of the children of Israel. From the larger tribe you give many, from the smaller you give few. Each one gives some of its cities to the Levites in proportion to the inheritance that it inherits. So obviously it works out. From the larger tribe, there's more cities. And the actual purpose of the Levites being there would mean that they would need more cities in the larger tribe, because they were there to teach the Torah to these people. So more cities are needed where there are more people. It just makes perfect sense. In Genesis 49 verse 7, Yaakov actually curses Simeon and Levi. He said, Cursed be their displeasure, for it is fierce, and their wrath, for it is cruel. I divide them in Yaakov and scatter them in Israel. Now, Simeon were the tribe that suffered the most loss. Okay, and they kind of were just absorbed into Israel. They were meant to be as a part of Judah, but they just became as nothing, basically. The Levites, they were scattered, but it was actually good. It was good for the children of Israel, and it was good for them as well. Romans 8:28, all matters work together for good. So even this curse which Yaakov had put upon them, which was a curse to them, okay, even that Yehovah used for good. This is where the cities were. Okay, this is the distribution of the cities. So in the larger tribes, there are more cities. In the smaller tribes, there are less cities. Exodus 22:12 to 14 is where we're actually told about these things for the first time. It says, He who strikes a man so that he dies shall certainly be put to death. But if he did not lie in wait, but Elohim delivered him into his hand, then I shall appoint for you a place where he is to flee. Okay, and these are the cities of refuge. So if you kill somebody, then you're to be put to death. But if what was going on in your mind was not that you wanted to kill them, that you were lying in wait for them, then you have a place that you can flee to. We'll look at why that's necessary next. But when a man acts presumptuously against his neighbor to kill him by treachery, you are to take him even from my altar to die. Okay, so anything that touched the altar was made holy. Okay, but Yehovah says, I don't care about that. If they've killed somebody, you go even to my altar and you take them away and you kill them. Genesis 9:5 to 6 says, But only your blood for your lives I require. From the hand of every beast I require it. From the hand of man. From the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. So from the hand of every man's brother I require the life of man. This person would be called the revenger of blood. Okay. It says, Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood is shed, by the man's brother, by this revenger of blood. Yehovah spoke to Moshe, saying, "Speak to the children of Israel, say to them, when you pass over the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall choose cities to be cities of refuge for you, that the one who accidentally killed someone shall flee there. And they shall be cities of refuge for you from the revenger, and from the one who killed someone is not to die until he stands before the congregation in judgment." Okay, so if someone runs to the city of refuge, and the revenger of blood comes and he says, no, they killed somebody and it wasn't an accident, okay, they shouldn't be protected by the city of refuge. The congregation or the people who sat at the gate would have to make judgment in this matter, okay, so a trial has to be held. And of the cities which you give, 6 are to be cities of refuge. Give 3 cities beyond the Jordan, and give 3 cities in the land of Canaan as cities of refuge. So in the 2.5 tribes, there were 3 cities there. And in the land of Canaan, there were 3 cities there. Okay, so it's a diagram of the Levitical cities, and these are the cities of refuge, where if you kill someone by accident, you can flee to. These 6 cities are for refuge for the children of Israel, and for the sojourner, and for the settler in their midst, for anyone who accidentally kills someone to flee there. Okay, so these people need protection as well, because as we'll see later in the Torah portion, the reason that the land is not to be defiled, and it is defiled by blood, the reason though is because Yehovah is dwelling in the land at this time. Okay, just like he was in the tabernacle, and you couldn't be unclean and go into the tabernacle, defile the tabernacle, he was actually dwelling in the land, so the land could not be defiled. But if he has smitten him with an instrument of iron, so that he dies, he is a murderer. The murderer shall certainly be put to death. If he's smitten him with a stone in the hand by which one could die, and he does die, he's a murderer, the murderer shall be put to death. Or if he's smitten him with a wooden instrument that could kill, and he does die, he's a murderer, the murderer shall be put to death. I want to point out something here. The idea that if they've been struck with a stone, and that stone is one by which, you've recognized that someone could die, then they're a murderer. This is seen in English law as well. This is called, in law, you have 2 elements to a law. You have what's called the actus reus, which is the guilty act, okay, that you've hit someone and they've died, and you've got mens rea, okay. Mens rea is the guilty mind. So you've got to have something in your mind for a crime to have occurred. For the crime of murder, it has to be intention. Okay, you have to have had the intention to kill in order for it to be murder. There are other mens rea as well, recklessness, negligence, okay? And they can be seen in the cases when someone can run to a city of refuge, but it's not sufficient for it to be murder. Now, in murder, it's not just if you intend something. There's another case as well, which is where it is a virtually certain consequence of your action. Then it can be implied as intention. If something is virtually certain to happen as a consequence of your action, then you can be said to have intended it. For example, if you put a bomb on a plane, you wouldn't be intending to kill specific people. There's no intention to kill them. However, it would be a virtually certain consequence of your action, so it can be implied as intent. And we see the same thing here. Look, if you've hit someone with a wooden instrument that could kill, and you're like, well, this is something that could kill someone, I'm going to hit this person with it. It's implied intention on your part, and you are a murderer. It's interesting that we see these elements to the law in these things, because we're going to look at mens rea, which is less than intention, recklessness, negligence, and Yehovah deals with them differently. The revenger of blood himself puts the murderer to death. When he meets him, he puts him to death. And if he thrusts him through in hatred or throws an object at him while lying in wait so that he dies. So here we've got more mens rea. Okay, he's got to hate the person. It's got to be done in hatred, or when he's lying in wait with the intention to kill this person. Or in enmity, he smites him with his hand so that he dies. The one who smote him shall certainly be put to death, for he is a murderer. The revenger of blood puts the murderer to death when he meets him. So what's going on in your mind is incredibly important to Yehovah as well, and that's going to determine your level of culpability. So we've got 2 people, just to illustrate how this works. Smite someone with an instrument of iron so that they die, you're a murderer, you shall be put to death. Okay? Hit someone with a stone, kill somebody, they die, you're a murderer, you shall be put to death. And wooden object, you strike someone, they die, you're a murderer, put to death. Okay? You're lying in wait for somebody, you throw your javelin at them, and you couldn't see them, but you were lying in wait for them, you threw your javelin, it hits them, they die, you're a murderer, you should be put to death. Okay? If you strike somebody so that they die, okay, so you've done this in enmity, you've done this in hatred, you strike somebody, then you were intending to do them harm. The fact that they have died, that's just what happened. We were talking about this before in the kitchen. There's an eggshell skull case, it's called in law, where if somebody has got an eggshell skull, which is a very, very fragile skull, and you hit them and they die, then you're a murderer, because their underlying condition is not to be taken into account. It's the fact that you've intended to harm them and they've died as a result of it. Okay, the revenger of blood chases after the person. If he catches up to them, he can put them to death. It's by the hand of the revenger of blood, though, that this is done. But if he pushes him suddenly without enmity, or throws an object at him without lying in wait, or uses a stone by which a man could die, throwing it at him without seeing him so that he dies, while he was not his enemy or seeking his harm. So there we've got the mens rea, which is necessary. This isn't a case of intention. This is a case of negligence or recklessness. Okay, you're throwing around stuff that people could die if they were hit by. That, you're not intending to kill anyone. You haven't got the hatred or the enmity towards them. However, you are being negligent, you are being reckless. Then the congregation shall judge between him who killed someone and the revenger of blood according to these judgments. So this is what it says when, if somebody flees to a city and the revenger of blood comes and says they've killed somebody, then a trial is held essentially. And the congregation shall rescue the one who killed someone from the hand of the revenger of blood. The congregation shall return him to the city of refuge where he fled, and he shall remain there until the death of the high priest, who was anointed with the set-apart oil. Okay, so he goes back to the city, but this person is not free. This person cannot leave the city. They're free to live within the city, and let's remember, it's a Levitical city. This is a city where the teachers of the Torah would be. Yehovah has a purpose in all of these things. So the person then cannot leave the city for a certain period of time, because he didn't intend to kill somebody, but he was reckless or negligent as to their death. So the punishment is that they do this. But if the one who killed someone at any time goes outside the limits of the city of refuge where he fled, and the revenger of blood finds him outside the limits of the city of refuge, the revenger of blood kills him who killed someone, he is not guilty of blood. So if he leaves the city of refuge, he is liable to die, to the death penalty. Because he should have remained in his city of refuge until the death of the high priest. But after the death of the high priest, he who killed someone is to return to the land of his possession. Okay, so pictorial form again. Got two guys, we've got a stone behind someone. Maybe you push them, not realizing, they stumble backwards and they die. Okay, you've not intended to kill them, you didn't have any enmity or any hatred towards them. You're not a murderer, but you do have to go and dwell in the city of refuge. Okay, we've got a guy here with his javelin again. This is his target that he's aiming at. But behind the target, let's say this is a public field, there's somebody who's standing behind the bush. So he throws his javelin at him, or at the target, it misses, goes over the top, skewers this person. Now he shouldn't have been throwing a javelin around in a place where there were people. He was negligent or reckless. Okay, someone throws a stone over a hedge, a stone that could kill someone, and it strikes someone and does kill them. No intention, no enmity, no hatred, but they're not a murderer. Okay, we would call this manslaughter. Okay, unlawful act manslaughter, perhaps, where you're doing something which is wrong and you bring about someone's death through it, although you didn't intend it and you can't be called a murderer. It is manslaughter by doing an unlawful act. So the revenger of blood chases the person, and they can go to the city of refuge. And as long as they're in the city of refuge, the revenger of blood cannot touch them. But if they go out of the city of refuge before the death of the high priest, and the revenger of blood finds them, then the revenger of blood kills them. Okay? Kind of like a prison without walls, or, whatever. They're made to stay in the city of refuge. Now, while they're in the city of refuge, the high priest is alive, okay, and they're living in this Levitical city with all these teachers of the Torah. Sure, it's doing them good. And after the death of the high priest, then this person can freely leave the city, and the revenger of blood cannot touch them, and they go free. Luke 12:47-48 illustrates the principle behind this. Okay, the fact that you are more culpable before Yehovah if you have knowledge of something. That servant who knew his master's desire and did not prepare nor did according to his desire shall be beaten with many stripes. So if the Lord's told you that something is wrong and you just decide that you're going to continue doing it, then your punishment is the most severe. But he who did not know, yet did what deserved flogging, shall be beaten with few. Okay, like the person who didn't know that they were going to kill someone, but they did something that was wrong, they did something that was negligent or reckless, their punishment is less. Okay, they go to the city of refuge where they must remain till the death of the high priest.